Hello again, fight fans. Welcome to episode 313 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. I am your host, Michael Montero, for The Ring Magazine. As you can see, the new July 2022 issue is out, and a large portion of this latest issue is dedicated to the situation in Ukraine, specifically Ukrainian boxers, both active and retired boxers, returning to their homeland to help out with the terrible, terrible situation going on over there. And of course, our thoughts are with everybody affected by the war in Ukraine, really on both sides, because the citizens of Russia are suffering as well. Of course, not as much as the citizens of Ukraine, but I digress. Michael Montero here for The Ring Magazine, ringtv.com, and the Ring Digital YouTube channel where you are watching me live right now. As always, guys, I remind you to hit that thumbs up button. Make sure that you jab that. Make sure that you're subscribed and you click that notification bell so that you never, ever, ever miss a live episode of the show. But if you do, if you missed the live video, it's all good. The audio pod is on podcast platforms around the world. Just look for Montero on Boxing, The Neutral Corner. You'll find me there. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you like to listen to podcasts on, and drop a rating, drop a review, all that good stuff. Quick reminder about the fee. We charge a fee on this show. It is non-monetary. We don't do ads here. Believe me, I get offers all the time to put ads on this show. I'm talking about the live video here. You guys, when you watch YouTube stuff, and a lot of you, really the only place where you consume media and watch movies and everything else is right here on YouTube. Is it not annoying as shit that there's 8 billion ads that you have to click through every time you watch a video? We don't do that here, right? We're not doing a bunch of advertisements and making you guys deal with that. All I ask is that if you get something out of the show, my fee is just spread the word, man. Tell people about it, all right? Tell people about the show. That's it. Pretty easy. Do that every week, and this show will continue to grow. That's how we've done it since the start. I've never paid for subscribers. I've never paid for followers. It's 100% organic. And by the way, while I'm at it, make sure that you check out my personal YouTube channel, Montero on Boxing, and then my website, monteroonboxing.com. You can keep up with all my latest news and stuff going on there. And you can purchase Montero on Boxing t-shirts there, and you can contribute to MOB there. There's various different ways you can do that, okay? All right, so I got all the preliminary stuff out of the way. Now, let me just say this as well. I know a lot of you want to get on the phone. I know some of you can't wait to get on the phone and gloat. Couple things, okay? I got to keep this show a little shorter than normal. At most, I could go 90 minutes. I got to get to the gym. I got a busy week. That's one. So we're going to keep this show a little bit shorter. Maybe we'll go 90 minutes. So I will go through my thing. When we get to the phones, you guys, we can't do the chat session, okay? That's for the Friday show. Here, we got to keep it business, all right? You got to round it off. Boom, boom, boom. Give me what you got. We'll move to the next call. Now, if we don't get a whole lot of calls, I anticipate that we will, but in case we don't, then I can keep you guys on the line a little bit longer. Second thing, no Friday wrap-up show. I'm going to literally be getting ready to fight at the time I usually go live. I'll be getting wrapped up and getting my medicals and all that done. So I won't be able to do a Friday wrap-up show this Friday, but we'll be back with that next week, okay? So no Friday show, but we'll do as much as we can here today. So let me get through it, man. By the way, I got a couple of rants I'm going to have to go on. So trigger warning for some of you. It's going to get a little political, but I will keep it extremely brief. I'm talking 5 minutes, okay? I have to hit on a few things. I don't have a big platform, but I got a little bit of a platform here, and I need to get some shit off my chest as it relates to judging and some other things. And I got to hold my brothers and sisters in the boxing media accountable. I'm really disappointed in you guys. And I know a lot of you listen to the show, and you guys let me down this weekend, and I'm going to talk about why. All right. But first, news and or notes. And it's going to be nice and short and sweet, guys. The only thing that really happened this week of note was Kell Brook retires at 36 years old. This was expected. He got his signature W against his countrymen last year, or was that earlier this year? I can't even remember. That win over Khan, really beat up shot version of Khan, but still it counts as a W, right? Kell Brook is going to kind of go down as one of those what if guys. But the thing is the dude had balls of steel. He took on challenges that a lot of other fighters wouldn't in his position, most notably moving up 2 divisions to fight Gennady Golovkin when Chris Eubank suddenly lost his pen, right? What's funny, Chris Eubank called out Gennady Golovkin on Twitter this weekend. I found that to be hilarious because back in 2016, he had apparently agreed to fight Golovkin, and he claims it was his daddy that ruined that fight for him. I don't know. But he sure wasn't calling out Golovkin in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Here we are in 2022. He called him out this weekend. Anyway, when Chris Eubank found a way out of that fight, Kell Brook jumped in and he said, look, I'll take the damn fight. He dared to be great. He came up short. Unfortunately for him, he didn't just come up short. His face was broken, literally. Okay? That's not metaphysical. That's not some kind of metaphor. It literally happened. He broke his face and then moved down 2 weight classes after that, fought Errol Spence. His face got broken again because once you break your face once, it's probably going to keep breaking after that. And that injury cost him against Terrence Crawford because I think Crawford punched him right in that orbital bone and boom, the circus got scrambled and that was that. So Kell Brook, listen, he fought everybody. You know, he took challenges. I give the guy tremendous credit. Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford still haven't fought each other. They're 4,000 years old. Kell Brook fought both of them. Came up short, but he fought both of them. So I give the guy tremendous credit. Good luck in retirement. I hope you stay retired. There's no reason to ever come back, Kell. You did great. 36 years old. You're a millionaire. You can walk away for this great career that you had and enjoy the rest of your life. So please stay retired. Best of luck to you, champ. At one point, I really do feel Kell Brook was the #1 welterweight in the world. I was ringside when he beat Sean Porter, and I was very impressed. And it was brief, but I really thought right in that time frame, he was the top welterweight in the world. It was very, very brief, but it still counts. He definitely was a world-class operator at his absolute best. Super chat from OJ22. Thank you, OJ. He said, Bivol boxed a near-perfect fight, and the judges almost took it away from him. The first 4 rounds were scored before the fight. Horrible. I know you will have a lot to say about the scoring. Oh, yeah, OJ. Oh, yeah, trust me. I got some fire for you guys today, all right? So buckle up. I'm just taking my time with it because I know a lot of you are just getting on the chat here. So let's get into the review, okay? Because obviously there's a lot to cover. There's only really one big fight that we're going to talk about, but there's a lot of different angles to it. So last Saturday, May 7th, in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena, it was Matchroom Boxing putting on a show on DAZN pay-per-view. And hey, I got to say this real quick. DAZN, Matchroom. Guys, if I'm paying $60 extra for a pay-per-view, there shouldn't be commercials. If you want to put commercials on regular DAZN, the way that there are regular commercials on ESPN and Fox and all that, cool. But the difference is we're paying a monthly subscription fee for DAZN, kind of like we do with Showtime. I don't expect commercials in between rounds if I'm paying a monthly subscription service. That's bad enough. But if I'm paying for a pay-per-view, I'm paying an additional fee on top of the annual fee I pay for my yearly subscription. I really shouldn't see ads for the new Top Gun movie and the new Jurassic Park movie. They must have played those ads 100 times. So just a quick note to you guys. That sucked. And it's kind of insulting to your audience when you're asking us to pony up extra money and still playing ads. There were ads all throughout the arena, all over the ring apron, all over any poster or any t-shirt that's being sold, okay? You got enough ad space in. But to air ads during the entire effing fight, which I paid a premium for, like that, it's just a bit over the top. So maybe tone that just a little bit down next time. Yeah. Anyway, Dmitry Bivol in the main event. We're not even going to talk about the undercard because it was shit. Dmitry Bivol in the main event improves to 20-0 with a unanimous decision win over Canelo Alvarez, successfully defends his WBA light heavyweight title, and will take it back home to Russia. I said a bad word. I just said a swear word. Russia. Bivol is Russian. No one mentioned that during the entire broadcast. I found that quite interesting. He's taken the light heavyweight title back to Russia. I'm going to say that word a few more times in the show, so be prepared. Your asshole might pucker up. I know some of you. Anyway, Bivol scores a unanimous decision, 115-113 on all three scorecards. Those scorecards were terrible. I'm going to get into that. In fact, that's my first rant. You know what? Let's go ahead and get at that. So the scorecards, 115-113. All three judges, and these are called veteran elite level judges. I think it was Chris Mannix who said that before the fight. You couldn't ask for three better judges going into this main event. I believe that's what Chris Mannix said. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not even going to name their names. All right. You guys know the damn names. And one of them I was really disappointed in because I really do consider him one of the better young judges in the sport. And we've interacted a lot personally. And I like the guy. Really disappointed at his scorecard. The other two old fucks, I just expected what they did. Anyway, they scored all 12 rounds the exact same way. Now, had they gotten the correct score, that wouldn't bother me because, in fact, this was actually a very easy fight to score. It wasn't that difficult to score this fight. 7, 8 rounds were pretty clear, and you could really only go in one direction, okay? And then there were maybe 4 swing rounds or something, and if you split those, then you wound up with a score that was 117, 111. You could even go 118, 110 for Bivol. The closest you could possibly see this fight, and that was giving Canelo the benefit of every doubt, would be 116, 112. But for all three judges to have it 115, 113, and specifically for all three of them to give Canelo the first 4 rounds, that was scary. And some of you out there have said, Mike, that's not a big deal. They got a round or 2 off. The right guy won. How long have you guys been watching boxing? I mean, do you not remember? I'm sorry. Did you forget what happened a few years ago during the first fight between Canelo and Golovkin? Because I sure haven't. I'll never forget it. I was there. And there are plenty of other instances I can point to. But some of you guys have really short memories. Here's why this stands out, okay? Let's say all three judges got to this same shitty score, but they scored rounds differently. Maybe that'd be a little bit better. Maybe not. I don't know. But here's the truth. Okay. The 7 rounds they gave to Bivol were absolutely, it was impossible to give those rounds to Canelo. They were irrefutable Dmitry Bivol rounds. Could not give them to Canelo if you tried. Even Adelaide Bird would have scored those rounds for Dmitry Bivol, at least half of them. But the other 5 were the competitive rounds, okay? So rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9 were competitive. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean Canelo won them, but they were competitive. The first round to me really wasn't. I thought Bivol clearly won that round. I think he more than doubled the number of landed punches and with much better accuracy. I'm not going to bring up all the punch numbers. Guys, by the way, I did an immediate reaction video Sunday morning, technically, at like 1:30 in the morning. So look for that. It's pinned on my page, Montero Unboxing, my personal YouTube channel. Look for that and watch it. I talk about some of the punch numbers and stuff like that. But I think I actually show them because CompuBox emailed it all to us. But to give Canelo every single round that was somewhat competitive, even though he lost most of those rounds, okay? And again, it's 1 through 4 in the 9th round. Those are 5 rounds. I thought Bivol won 3 of those rounds. But maybe you want to give Canelo 3 of them, fine. But generally speaking, in competitive close rounds like that, you might split them. But the truth is, I didn't think Canelo won more than maybe 2, possibly 3 of those rounds. For all 3 of these guys to give him all 5 of those rounds it should tell you that what the judges were going to do on this night is give any competitive round, didn't even have to be that close, just competitive, was going to go to Canelo, particularly in the first half of the fight. And then if the scorecards got super duper wide, they would have given a couple of makeup rounds to Bivol. That is the way Las Vegas judging is done, generally speaking, when there's a big A side and a B side. And we've seen situations before where fighters from a certain part of the world Russia, come to Vegas and fight an establishment fighter. This tends to be how the scorecards go. So this is the case. Had Canelo had enough energy, wherewithal, and had his corner actually been competent that night and given him some adjustments to make, had he come out and won the 12th round, had the 12th round been competitive, okay, they would have given him that round, and this fight would have been a draw. And you would have had a situation similar to the first Canelo-Golovkin fight. Although I said this right after the fight, and I'll say it again, Dmitry Bivol beat Canelo Alvarez more decisively than Gennady Golovkin did. I'm going to go further with that. Dmitry Bivol beat Canelo Alvarez more decisively than Floyd Mayweather did. That's the truth. So these judges were trying to find a way to give a competitive fight that Canelo may or may not have been winning or losing. They were trying to find a way to give it to him. It's obvious in the scoring. If you can't see that, then I don't know what to tell you. Now, here's where I need to rant. I'm not surprised by the judges. And by the way, I'm not mad at Canelo for this. Canelo is not the problem. Canelo is a byproduct of the problem. He's maybe a symptom of the problem. He's a beneficiary of the problem, but he's not the problem. The problem is the establishment and how things work. I can't recall, or I haven't heard of, a single media member holding the Nevada State Athletic Commission to task this weekend. If they did, and I simply missed the video of it, please forward it to me, okay? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, not a single member of the media, and there was a lot of media there, including people that write for Ring Magazine, my publication that I contribute to. We're there. Nobody talked to or challenged the Nevada State Athletic Commission officials. And if they weren't available, well, they didn't talk to Eddie Hearn in Matchroom. They didn't talk to the folks at DAZN. I'm not going to get into how judges are paid and everything. You guys, if you're watching the show and listening to this, then you already know. You know how this thing works, okay? It's bigger than just the Nevada State Athletic Commission. If Bob Bennett didn't make himself available for discussion at the post-fight presser or anything like that, then go to Eddie Hearn, because he's who's cutting the check. Go to the folks at DAZN, because they are who is putting on the event. They are the platform promoting the event. So go to somebody. But I didn't see or hear of one media member putting any of those people on blast. Not one. Now, you guys know damn well, if I was there, that's what I would have did. And I'm not just pulling that out of my ass. I'm not just patting myself on the back. I'm saying it because I've fucking done it. And it's cost me access. It's cost me money, but I still did it. No one else, no one on this particular night did it. That sucks. So I'm calling out my brothers and my sisters in the boxing media, who I love dearly. You guys are my family. But none of you, again, if there's a video out there, please forward it to me. Please correct me. Okay. And I will apologize. I will take it all back. But nobody held anyone to task. And some of you are saying, well, who cares, Mike? The right man won. Guys, it just takes one of these instances where your fighter that you're a fan of, or your fighter that you're a family member of, or a trainer of, or a supporter of, a sparring partner of, whatever it is, to get screwed by one of these judges. And then you'll feel it. Then it'll be personal. Then you'll get pissed off. Then you'll want to rant about it. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, now you're here. I'm the guy who's been saying it for years, and you give me shit every time I say it. Michael, calm down. It's not a big deal. The right guy won. All right. These same judges who have dicked over several fighters in the past, just in recent past, I'm not even going to go like way, way back. They're going to do it again. This is going to cost somebody millions of dollars. Okay, these losses in these scenarios, if Dmitry Bivol came up short in this fight and got robbed, do you guys think that Canelo Alvarez would be interested in enacting the rematch clause? Do you think that Bivol would get anywhere near the amount of money he deserved or anything like that if they did do a rematch? Look at what happened to Sergey Kovalev against Andre Ward, right? So this can affect somebody's livelihood and their family. It's a big deal, okay? Now, that's the first rant. And I promise I'm going to talk about the actual fight. Now there's the second rant I need to get into. And I need to be very, very careful about the way I word this. And I'm not going to dwell on it long. I promise, guys. 2 or 3 minutes tops, okay? But coming into this fight, Dmitry Bivol was the WBA light heavyweight champion. I wouldn't call him a champion because to me right now, the champion at 175 is vacant. I would call Bivol a title holder. You guys know all the time I talk about the difference between a title holder and a champion. But Dmitry Bivol was the title holder coming into this fight. He made concessions. He made the concession to come to Las Vegas and fight in Canelo Alvarez's backyard. No harm, no foul there, because that's obviously where the most money could be made, right? You're not going to do a fight in Russia. Oops, I said a bad word, Russia. I hope YouTube doesn't, take down this video. But fuck, there, I said that word's probably better than Russia on YouTube right now in the algorithm. But you're not going to fight over there. You're going to fight in Vegas. That makes sense, right? But still, it should be noted that the champion made a concession to come over here and do the fight. But I've never seen this before. Dmitry Bivol came out to the ring first, right? And then Canelo came out, and there's this big presentation. It was the Canelo Alvarez show, which I get. He's the A-side. He's the superstar of the sport, right? It's him on this side of the pond, and it's Anthony Joshua / Tyson Fury now on the other side of the pond. I got you. But a lot of times when you see that, they'll flip-flop. The fighters will flip the ring walk and the ring announcement. But in this case, Canelo got both of them. Bivol he came to the ring first, and then he was announced first. That was interesting. Normally, again, if it was just one of these things, I'd be like, this is just typical A-side, B-side nonsense, whatever, that's boxing. But all of this combined, and then you add the fact that the Mexican national anthem was played, which I get. The American national anthem was played, which I don't get because neither of these fighters were American. And then the Russian national, oops, I said a bad word again, Russia. Oops. The Russian national anthem was not played. Now, I understand why they wouldn't want to go there. I get that. I truly do. But they didn't even acknowledge that Bivol was from Russia. At no point during the broadcast, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, maybe I just didn't hear it. But some of you have told me, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but some of you have told me that they listed Bivol on the little data stuff, the little, what the hell do they call it? The stats. They listed him, the graphic, listed him as being from California. They didn't even list that he was from Russia. They listed him as being from Indio, California. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what you guys, a few of you have told me. To not even acknowledge the dude's nationality during the entire broadcast, to glance over it, have him come to the ring first, announce him first, all these things. And then, of course, the crowd booed him both before and after the fight. There's a certain level of disrespect that I expect in boxing, and I get it. Okay. And again, this was A-side versus C side, if we're being honest, right? This wasn't A versus B, this was A and C. But I can't recall all these things being together in a situation like this, and the media just saying nothing. Once again, I'm calling out my brothers and sisters in the boxing media. There wasn't a peep, not a peep about any of this that I heard. The commentary team didn't mention it. Nobody on the DAZN broadcast mentioned it. They had these DAZN broadcasts have 8,000 commentators now, because they have the guys down by the ring, and then they go way up to the top of the stadium, and there's 8 people up there, and none of them mentioned it, not once, before the fight, during the fight, after the fight. And I have to say this. First of all, I gotta hold my peers to the fire here. For none of you to bring this up, for none of you to mention it in your articles, your podcast, your radio segments, I'm very disappointed. And I'm not saying this from a high horse point of view. I'm saying this as a guy who looks up to a lot of you, as a guy who wants to be like a lot of you, okay, who's trying to be better myself to get on your level. It's just disappointing. And I have to add, and then I'll stop, and then I'll move on. I swear, okay? But it's not that any of this is making me lose sleep, because over the last 5 or 6 years in our country, it has been increasingly okay to shit on people from Eastern Europe, particularly Russia. It's just okay. There's no problem. Any movie, any TV show, even commercials, the media, there's an obsession and a hysteria over people from that part of the world, as if they have anything to do with the asshole that's running that country. And let me be clear about this. Vladimir Putin is a steaming hot pile of dog shit. He is a terrible, evil, corrupt human being. And what's happening over in Ukraine is disgusting. And what Putin and his henchmen and the Russian, I was going to say Russian mafia, Russian government are doing, kind of maybe one and the same, they are committing war crimes. Innocent men, women, and children are dying. Civilian targets are being hit by the military. If you're watching a news outlet that tries to tell you that that's not happening or it's being exaggerated, you need to stop watching that news outlet, because they're pieces of shit. Innocent people are dying. It's wrong, okay? So I had to get that. Did I check every box there? I'm not a fan of Vladimir Putin and what they're doing. It's disgusting, and I wish it'd stop tomorrow, today, right now. However, Russian people, for the most part, have nothing to do with it. So to punish somebody for what a member of their tribe is doing, generally speaking, we call things like that, I don't know, xenophobic at best, prejudiced at maybe a little worse. At the very worst, we call that racist. Now, Russian isn't a race, so you can't be racist against a Russian, but you sure can be prejudiced and bigoted against one. And I have to say, if Dmitry Bivol was a black guy from Nigeria, or an ethnic Muslim guy of Pakistani heritage, or an African-American guy from Houston, and fighting in an environment like this and being treated that way, not only by the Guaco fans, because fan is short for fanatic, we expect that, but by the entire promotion, the graphics team, the network, I have a feeling that there would be members of the media talking about that. There'd be people on Twitter tweeting about that. But it's not happening here because it's a guy from Russia. Okay, that's it for that rant. If I lost you there, sorry, we're back to boxing now. Okay, let me get to some super chats while I cool off, because that got me a little hot. Super chat from Sam A. Thank you so much, Sam. He says, Canelo accepted defeat in the ring. Hearn gave him only 3 rounds. Then in the presser, they both claim robbery. What the F? Yeah, look, Sam, you know, a lot of people are making a big thing of Canelo saying he won the fight. Listen, every fighter is going to say they won the fight. I'm not mad at Canelo for that. I'm not mad at Hearn, you know, should be a little ashamed. Okay. But Canelo, I'm not mad at him for saying that. He's a fighter. Of course, he wants to feel that he won, and he wants to say that for his fans. But he knows deep down inside he didn't win that damn fight. He won 2 or 3 rounds. But what a fighter knows in their heart and what they say publicly, often 2 very different things. Okay, Aaron with the super chat. Thank you, my man. He said, yo, Mike, the Bradis scrap is now rescheduled to July 6th over there in Aussie land. I knew Bivol had levels, and I have no issue with Canelo losing. Do you think guys like Spence could be remotely competitive moving up in weight? So I assume you're talking about Spence moving up to fight Canelo, because Spence versus Bivol at 175, come on. I mean, that's not fair. But Spence moving up to fight Canelo, whether it be at 160, 168, maybe a catchweight at 164, that's been talked about a lot on Twitter. Obviously, I would favor Canelo huge in that fight. But Spence is talented enough and athletic enough and I think confident enough to go the distance and to give him a tough fight and to win a few rounds. But I think it'd be 116, 112, 117, 111 type of win for Canelo. And it's also very possible that Canelo could score a late stoppage. But Canelo isn't someone who really stops guys on the elite level. He never has. When he stops guys, it's because they're a notch below elite. When he fights the absolute best, they're distance fights. And I think Spence would go to distance, but he'd lose. Everything Spence does, Canelo does pretty much better. The only thing is I'd say Spence is faster, more athletic, better with his feet. There are some things he does better, so I should take that one statement back. But I just think that Canelo, just a better fighter, and I'd favor him to win that fight going away. I truly would. All right, super chat from Mark Ashley. Thank you so much, Mark. He said, Canelo stepped up. Huge respect. We were all worried about the decision for good reason. Both things can be true simultaneously. Abso-freaking-lutely, Mark. And in the midst of all my ranting and raving and all that stuff, I hope that I made it clear. And if I didn't, I want to make it clear right now. None of this is me dissing Canelo. Canelo deserves tremendous credit. And by the way, I tweeted that. And I posted a tweet. Several of my tweets went viral this weekend. I just had like a viral streak going, but one went super duper viral where I basically tweeted that, Canelo took a challenge that 99% of boxers in his position would not have taken. You go back to the last pound for pound superstar this sport had, won't mention the name here, but that man didn't take challenges like this. There is no free. The last guy wouldn't step up and fight a broken Sergio Martinez at 160 or a catchweight like Miguel Cotto did. What makes you think he'd step up and fight Dmitry Bivol, a situation like this? So Canelo deserves credit for taking on the challenge. I do think Canelo's ego got the best of him. I do think that he approached this fight with a poor game plan. I'll talk a little more about that in a second. It just caught up with him. All right. Is that all of them? Nope. We got another one from Anthony Santiago. Thank you so much, Ant. Appreciate it. He says, if the rematch happens, do you think Triple G tries to unify with Charlo or the WBO title holder? Bivol had everything against him and dominated. That's a bad dude. We'll talk about the Triple G thing. Boy, Triple G has to be upset. It's still very possible we get Canelo versus Triple G. And I'll talk about that a little bit here during my review, because the thing is, the odds for that fight now just became more favorable, and the fan perspective for that fight just became more favorable because of the trajectory of both fighters right now. People were looking at Canelo as being this unbeatable guy right now. He just got humbled and brought back down to earth. Golovkin's coming off an emphatic win over a guy who had never been stopped, busted him up, stopped him, unified belts, knocked off ring rust. So now if these two fight, it'd still be for the undisputed super middleweight championship in the world. It's still the biggest fight that could be made between 147 and 200 pounds. It's still a big fight, so it could happen. But more about that in a minute. Another super chat from Mendeli CA. Thank you so much, Mendeli. He says, saw a comment saying, if the rematch is done, Bivol is willing to do 168 and go for Canelo's belts. Would Canelo win at 168? Very good question. I will get into that as well. Just give me a second. But I definitely think that 168, that's a way more competitive fight. And then OJ with another super chat. He says, you're Canelo's promoter. What do you do next? Another great question. All right, let's get into all this, guys, because all of it's part of my review. So I talked about the scorecards. I talked about the xenophobia and disrespect to the champ coming in. One thing I want to note, too, I saw a few people out there tweeting that there were parallels in this fight to Teofimo Lopez and his win over Vasily Lomachenko. Yes, there were parallels in the sense that Teofimo Lopez was looking at Lomachenko for a long time. They saw something, they targeted him very specifically, and employed an outstanding game plan that was better than what Anatoly Lomachenko had over in Loma's corner, at least coming in. And it worked. And they had natural size and strength advantages. The one difference maybe is Teo a lot younger than Loma. But, Loma's a guy who had moved up, blown up featherweight, had to move up because everyone in those lower divisions was ducking him, right? Canelo, one difference is he kind of moved up because he didn't want to fight some of those other guys, at least not yet. And he saw easier business north of 160. So it's a little bit different. But Dmitry Bivol has had his eyes on Canelo Alvarez for years. And they saw something there that they thought they could exploit, and they were correct. and he's targeted this guy for years. So in a sense, it is kind of similar to Tio versus Loma. So there's some things that were similar and different. One other difference, Lomachenko made adjustments in that fight against Teofimo and won some of those late rounds to make it close. You could actually say that was a 7-5, 8-4 kind of fight between the two of them, right? Teofimo won, but Lomachenko was able to find some things and make some adjustments in the second half and actually make the fight close. And Tio had to pull it out in the championship rounds because Lomachenko almost narrowed that gap fully. Against Bivol, Canelo Alvarez, he had a little moment there in the 9th round, and I'm not even sure he won that 9th round, but you could maybe give it to him. It was a swing round. But I think Bivol still outlanded him in that round. But Bivol swept the championship rounds, and there was absolutely no doubt that he had thoroughly dominated and won that fight. The only thing you wondered was Bivol going to get robbed? So some similarities and differences to those two fights. My fight pick, okay, I just have to say this real quick. Here's where my fight pick was correct. I honestly thought, and I said this last week, you guys could go back and listen to the tape. Bivol's got to win 8 rounds to get the draw, right? Well, they won 9 rounds, and he only won on the scorecards by 1 round. So that's where my prediction was kind of correct. I said Bivol was a live dog. It wouldn't shock me if he won, but he's going to have to win 8 rounds to get the draw. He's going to have to, win 7, 8 rounds to get the draw. And it wouldn't surprise me if close rounds go to Canelo. Well, all that kind of happened. Now, here's where my prediction was wrong. Here's where I was dead wrong. Bivol won his rounds in dominant fashion. He dominated this fight. He beat Canelo in more dominant fashion than Golovkin did, than Mayweather did. That did surprise me. It didn't shock me, but it did surprise me. And Bivol, I talked about this last week too, and I mentioned this. I said, does Bivol have more levels to him? Is there more to him than we haven't seen? Has he been fighting down to the level of his opposition in recent years and playing possum to kind of draw in a big name fighter to take in the challenge? And that turns out that's what it was. The guy that we saw against Joe Smith, Isaac Chilemba, Sullivan Barrera, Jean Pascal, that really was the real Bivol. In fact, there's more to him than we saw against those guys, right? In the big moment, he wasn't shook. He not only stepped up to the plate, he hit a fucking grand slam. He knocked it out of the park. And my prediction was wrong because I didn't think he would dominate in so many rounds the way he did. I was very surprised at that. Again, not shocked, but surprised. I was also surprised at how limited Canelo Alvarez was in this fight. Did Canelo Alvarez make a single adjustment, or did he just kept trying to do the same thing over and over, and that was good enough to win a few rounds? I didn't see him make one adjustment. We just saw Katie Taylor pull out a fight against Amanda Serrano a couple weeks ago that she was losing, going into those championship rounds, because she made late adjustments and showed her craft and her superior boxing to Serrano down the stretch. And Canelo was not able to do that against Bivol. There was a sequence I saw a couple people tweeting, little video sequences of Bivol catching and countering, right? And what surprised me is Canelo was kind of coming in with his head right on the line and just winging punches from far away. He wasn't jabbing his way. He wasn't doing anything like that. Really wasn't using any craft or science. And I get why he did that early, but when it wasn't working, why not make the adjustments in the middle rounds? It just wasn't there. Those are the things that surprised me. Bivol out-threw and outlanded Canelo throughout the fight. I think it was like 10 of the 12 rounds or something, according to CompuBox. I can't remember for sure. But he was the more accurate puncher. His punches were straighter. And because they were straighter, they got to the target faster than Canelo's. So when they actually punched together, Bivol's punches were more effective because they were right down the middle. They were straighter. So they hit the target faster. So I don't know if Bivol has faster hands than Canelo, but because he was punching straighter, it sure looked like it. And I talked about this on my immediate reaction video. Bivol threw in combination. Canelo did not. And Canelo can throw combinations. We've seen him throw combinations before. He didn't do that in this fight. Also, Bivol stayed long. In terms of the actual size and strength of these men, it's not that different. There's a lot being made about the weight and the size. I want to say Bivol's reach, I mean, that includes the size of a fighter's back, right? Because it's fingertip to fingertip. It was only 1.5 inches more than Canelo, but the arm length is significantly longer. And Bivol used that arm length, and he's taller. He used that height and arm length. Here's the thing, though. Callum Smith tried to do that. Caleb Plant tried to do that. Billy Joe Saunders tried to do that. It only worked for so long because Alvarez could work his way inside. He could get into the mid-range and get inside where he could loop those shots and land them on those fighters' temple. You know, or then he could start coming underneath with the uppercuts and get it on the chin, the side of the chin, the tip of the chin. And Canelo was not able to do that against Bivol. Why? Because of Bivol's feet. Bivol's footwork was outstanding. And Bivol doesn't do anything that is awe-inspiring or jaw-dropping. It's fundamental. But guys, I see a bunch of people on Twitter saying it was basic boxing. He beat him with basic boxing. Do you know how hard basic boxing is? This isn't shooting hoops. This isn't hitting a baseball. This isn't running a football. This isn't kicking a soccer ball. Basic boxing is one of the hardest things to do in sports for more than a 30-second clip on Instagram. Doing that over 12 rounds, doing it over 3 rounds. It's one of the most difficult things you can do in sports. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions about boxing. You know, take the NFL, okay? This is the National Football League, American Gridiron Football. The playbooks for those teams are this thick, right? They're thicker than they're thick, right? There's hundreds of plays. There's hundreds of schemes. There's 53 players on the team. It's complicated, right? Boxing, there's only so many punches. I can count the number of punches with one hand. So in terms of the X's and O's, boxing is simple, but executing it is one of the most difficult things in sports. Martial arts are different. They're different than other sports. So basic boxing, oh, this is just basic. But do you know how hard that shit is? Bivol, with everything he was facing mentally, emotionally, all the political xenophobia, all the xenophobic prejudice he was facing, all the things he was facing, to stay disciplined and stay on task and to keep doing the same thing and then make adjustments late and compound what he was doing was beautiful. Basic boxing is tough. And Dmitry Bivol, what he did this weekend was extraordinarily difficult, deserves tremendous credit for it, and proved that he's an elite level operator. Now, let's talk rematch real quick. But before I mention that, here's another note that I wanted to make. Is it just me, or did Canelo Alvarez come into this fight with the exact same game plan that he executed against Plant, Smith, and Saunders? He did the exact same thing. He prepared for Bivol like he was just another one of those guys. He should have prepared for Bivol the way he prepared for Gennady Golovkin in their rematch. That Canelo, mentally, physically, the sharpness we saw in that Canelo in the rematch with Golovkin, that's the Canelo I expected to see. And that's why I picked him on points. That's another reason against Bivol. But that's not who we saw. We saw the Canelo that fought Callum Smith. Guys, Dmitry Bivol is not Callum Smith. Dmitry Bivol is not Caleb Plant. He's a level above that. And so it was just interesting to see Canelo come in like that and fight that way. And Eddie Reynoso not have his man prepared for clearly a better fighter. They had to know they were facing the toughest challenge since Gennady Golovkin. They had to know that coming in, right? They didn't look like they prepared that way. Am I wrong? But that's just what I saw. Okay, where does this leave Golovkin with the rubber match with Canelo? And if I were Canelo, would I do a rematch with Dmitry Bivol? All right, let's talk about all this. Right now, Canelo Alvarez some people are writing his obituary. Guys, he's still the biggest star in the sport. In fact, this loss probably made him bigger. Seriously, it probably made him even bigger because now he's been humbled and he's going to have to go back to the drawing board. And he's got options. If they rematch Dmitry Bivol at 175, brass balls on Canelo, right? And everyone's going to talk about that. And what a redemption story it would be if Canelo could just be more competitive in the second fight, let alone if he won a rematch against Bivol. What a comeback story that is. And Canelo's a bigger superstar than ever before. That's if they do it at 175. If they do a rematch at 168, which Bivol has said he's interested in doing, okay? Now, Bivol keeps his light heavyweight title even if he loses that fight, so he can move back up to 175. And by then, remember, Beterbiev and Smith are fighting next month. So if Bivol, let's say, moves down to 168, and let's just say he loses the rematch to Canelo, going for the undisputed super middleweight championship, he's still got his title up at 175. He could still go up there and fight the winner of Beterbiev Smith for the undisputed 175 championship. So Dmitry Bivol has unprecedented opportunities now, and he could go several different directions, okay? If he can make 168 in a healthy way. Bivol is not, contrary to what the DAZN broadcast was trying to tell you guys over and over, Bivol's not a big light heavyweight. He could probably make 168. The question is, can he do it in a healthy way? He's not 24 anymore, right? He's in his 30s. He is a grown man. He hasn't got down to that weight in a long time. So it would be interesting to see if he could do it. If he could do it in a healthy way, man, that's a huge thing, because if Bivol could rematch Canelo at 168, the odds of that fight tighten up. It's more interesting, and he's going for even more greatness on his end. Canelo would be seen as a badass for rematch, going right into a rematch with Bivol. That's a huge fight. It's a huge fight. But let me say this. It is up to Dmitry Bivol where the rematch is held and what weight it's held at. He won the damn fight. He won the first fight. Just like Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. If they do a rematch, Katie Taylor gets to decide 2 or 3 minute rounds, location, all of it. She won the damn fight. Same thing here. It was the champion who made concessions in the first fight, but it was the champion who defended their crown. Now in the rematch, the champion gets to decide all the particulars. So I would expect the fight to come right back to Las Vegas, because once again, that's where all the money is. I get that. But in terms of what weight and everything else, that's up to Bivol. Now, what would I do if I were Canelo? Canelo's ego wants to rematch Bivol, right? He wants to go right into that rematch. But what's best from a business point of view? There's a couple things. I mentioned that Bivol could fight the winner between Beterbiev and Smith and completely unify the 175-pound division. What if you're Canelo Alvarez? You come back down to 168. You fight Gennady Golovkin in the rubber match. Let's say you beat him. Then you do your mandatory against John Ryder early next year. You beat him. By then, Bivol and the Beterbiev Smith winner have fought to unify 175. You're Canelo. You're the undisputed 168. Let's say Bivol beats Beterbiev and he becomes the undisputed 175. Suddenly, the rematch late next year for the undisputed 175 crown, not just the WBA, but the undisputed 175 crown, is even more massive. So there's several different directions this can go. And it's really up to Canelo. Again, the biggest money fight right now, still, and I know some of you don't want to hear this, but the biggest money fight is between him and Golovkin at 168. And the genius of it is, if Canelo wins, he's still the undisputed super middleweight champion. And Bivol, I'm sure, would still like to do a rematch and fight for the undisputed super middleweight championship next spring or something like that, next year at some point. So there are so many different ways this thing can go, okay? If we see Canelo and Bivol fight again, where does this leave Golovkin? Well, that's a good question. Demetrius Andrade, who was supposed to fight Zach Parker, but claims he's injured. I don't know if I believe that. He's out of his contract with Eddie Hearn and DAZN. So there are no roadblocks preventing Demetrius Andrade from signing with PBC and fighting Jermell Charlo. He was signed to fight him years ago and walked away from that fight. I don't know what to say there with Demetrius Andrade. There are still some people that think he's this boogeyman that's avoided. It's insane to me. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know for damn certain that Golovkin's not going to fight Demetrius Andrade anytime soon. If I had to guess, if Golovkin can't get Canelo because Canelo fights Bivol in their rematch, I think Golovkin's going to fight Jaime Munguia. I think that's the biggest fight money-wise at 160. It makes more money than a fight with Charlo would. Sells a lot more tickets, makes more money. Internationally makes more money, more eyes. Because you'd have all of Eastern Europe, and then you'd have Mexico. And if they put that fight in Vegas they could put it in Texas, they could put it in Los Angeles, big crowd. So I think that's the direction Golovkin would go. Also, Munguia fights on DAZN, so it's just easy to do, and I think that's the direction it will go. For Canelo, I would highly advise against him going right back into a rematch with Bivol at 175. If you want to go right back into a rematch and you can get him to come down to 68, you pay Bivol more, you treat him with respect this time around. And Bivol talked about this, by the way, after the fight. He talked that he felt he was disrespected, not treated as a champion. They need to fix that shit. And if they do a rematch, I'd like to see it at 168. But if Bivol don't want to do that, if he says, hey, I want the rematch at 175 or it ain't happening, I would advise Canelo to walk. It's just the rematch at 175 right now, why do that? You're the undisputed super middleweight champion. Move back down, defend that undisputed championship, and then explore your options from there. That would be my course of action on Team Canelo. But if Bivol is willing to come down to 168 and he can do it in a healthy way, yeah, do the rematch, September, Mexican Independence Day weekend, and do it at 168 for the undisputed 168. Why not? That's probably what I would do if I were Canelo, because his ego is talking there. I want to make sure I got to all you guys' questions. I think I did. Yes. All right. Let me hit some more super chats real quick. Sam with another super chat. Thank you, brother. He says, how does every fighter get around $10 million to fight Canelo? And I'm reading Bivol didn't get near that. What did he get? As I mentioned, Sam, Bivol made concessions. He made concessions to get this fight. There were other fighters being explored. There were other options being explored. And people made a lot this week. They made a lot of the deal that DAZN made Canelo to fight, I think, Charlo and then Benavidez, or Charlo, then Spence. Here's the difference in those fights. Those fighters would demand much higher paydays. So the pay scale becomes different. The upside, the way things are split, Canelo's share is a little different. Against Bivol, who basically said, give me peanuts, treat me like a piece of shit, I don't care, be prejudiced and xenophobic against me, I don't give a shit, just give me the damn fight. That's why Bivol got the damn fight. It really had nothing to do with Canelo wanting to duck Charlo and duck Benavidez. Look at those guys' resumes. It's ridiculous that Canelo is, quote unquote, ducking them to fight a much better fighter in Bivol, or at least a much more proven fighter. How about that? It had to do with numbers and things like that. And Bivol making the concessions to do everything on Canelo's terms, not just the money, but literally everything on Canelo's terms. And you know damn well Charlo, Benavidez, and Spence would not have done that, right? They would not have made those same concessions. That's how Bivol got the fight. And sometimes that's what you got to do to get the big opportunity. And so that's why we're here. Bivol believed in himself, made the concessions, got the fight, won the fight. Sam with another super chat. He says, if Canelo swings his driver today like he punched, all for the fences, I hope he brought a couple dozen balls. Great point, Sam. And it's something I forgot to mention. Every single punch that Canelo threw was a winging shot from the outside that was telegraphed from last Tuesday that was meant to hurt Bivol. It would have worked if Canelo could have got on the inside and planted his feet and went off and landed in combination. It may have worked if he could have gotten mid-range. Bivol wouldn't let him. Even when Bivol got pinned on the ropes, He covered up, he caught the shots on his arm, and then he either countered and pushed Canelo off. You also notice at the end of every combination, Bivol would get that left hand out, that left forearm out, and push Canelo back, straight back at full length, and then get out of range, right? Circle out. So he would either do that or he'd just use his feet to get out of there. And that's why Canelo's punches were so ineffective. What's funny is like the zone commentators like, oh, big landed punch from Canelo, big landed punch. And it's like, are you guys not seeing that it went through the guard and hit some gloves? Those are glancing blows. Yeah, it might have got through the guard. It might have got slightly around the guard, but it's catching some glove too. And that's taking 50% of the steam off those shots. Several of the uppercuts Canelo landed moved Bivol's head up a few inches, but it never snapped his head back. Not once in the fight did Bivol's head get snapped back or around by any of Canelo's punches. That's because all of them caught at least some gloves. And the commentators never mentioned that. HLD with the super chat. Thank you so much. He said Canelo did what Adesanya did in the UFC, overestimated his capabilities for greatness. Respect for that. Welcome back to earth. Size and skills matter. All right. So I don't know who Adesanya is. I'm not a huge UFC person, but I agree with you to a certain extent that I think Canelo, his head got a little big, and coming into this fight, he maybe overestimated himself and underestimated what he was facing, and just thought he could kind of do the same thing he had been doing, and this guy would fold over just like the other guys have recently done. He needed, once again, to repeat, Canelo should have prepared for this fight the way he prepared for Gennady Golovkin. And it just seemed to me that he didn't. He was in shape, he was strong, but the game plan wasn't there. So, it just seemed that he's been humbled a little bit. I still give him tremendous credit for daring to be great and taking on a guy that 99% of other fighters in the same position would avoid. I give him tremendous credit for that. But it does feel like he had to get a little humbled here. But again, this could make him an even bigger fighter. It really, really could. Because if Canelo comes back from this and goes on another great winning streak, regardless of which direction he goes, his brand will be bigger than it's ever been. It truly, truly will. Okay, let's see. I think that's it for the review. We're going to talk more about that fight, I'm sure. But real quick, let's preview what we got coming up this weekend. We have a busy, busy weekend, guys. Friday, May 13th, Matchroom Boxing in Milano, Italia, on the zone. Daniele Scardina, 20-0, going up against Giovanni Di Carolis, who is an experienced fringe contender type of fighter. 10 rounds, super middleweights. That's on the zone. Then Saturday, May 14th, we have a bunch of boxing, several different cards. Badou Jack is fighting in Dubai. That's interesting. Tony Yoka is fighting in France. Undefeated heavyweight prospect Tony Yoka. I believe ESPN Plus picked it up if you want to check it out. And then in the Los Angeles area, there are 3 different fight cards Saturday night in LA, in the LA area. LA is a massive spread out area. There's a bunch of different areas to town. So none of these are like downtown LA, but they're all within that Los Angeles metro, which is really interesting. California runs boxing, and boy, is LA having a huge weekend here. Golden Boy Promotions putting on a card at the Toyota Arena in Ontario, California. This will, of course, be broadcast on DAZN. In the main event, Gilberto Ramirez going up against Dominic Bosel, a German fighter. These are light heavyweights. Ramirez is 43-0. Just disappointing because he's hardly fought anybody worth note. I don't know what to make of this guy. And then also William Zepeda Segura, 25-0, lightweight prospect. A lot of people are excited about fighting tough, grizzled veteran Rene Alvarado. That's 10 rounds. That should be a fun one. I think that one's going to steal the show, actually. And then in Inglewood, California, it's Triller Fight Club. I think this is a Triller pay-per-view, Fight TV pay-per-view. Sergey Kovalev. Remember him? Speaking of Russians. Sergey Kovalev going up against Terrell Pulev. Ooh, another Eastern European. I'm scared. Pulev 16-0. This is a 10-round cruiserweight fight. Kovalev, of course, last time in the ring, this all comes full circle. It was a KO loss to Canelo Alvarez back in 2019, November of 2019. Fought as a light heavyweight pretty much his whole career, right? Now he's going to be moving up to cruiserweight. I don't know how this is going to end for Kovalev. We'll find out. But Kovalev hasn't fought since November of 2019. Pulev hasn't fought since last January. So both of these guys coming off a layoff, especially Kovalev. In the co-main, Tervel's brother, Kubrat Pulev, in a heavyweight fight, going up against Jerry Forrest, 10 rounds. Pulev, his last fight was a KO loss to Anthony Joshua, December 2020. No fight since. Forrest had a fairly busy 2021. 2 tough draws, disputed draws, with Zhang and Michael Hunter. And then also on that card, Evander Holyfield's son, and Fernando Vargas Jr. fighting in showcase matchups. Then the big one, TGB Promotions, Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. This is on regular showtime. Best fight of the weekend. Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castaño. This is for the undisputed junior middleweight championship, a rematch between these two. The first bout was last July. It ended in a draw. Many felt that Castaño won that fight. And then also at the co-main, Jaron Boots Ennis, undefeated welterweight prospect that a lot of people are excited about, going up against Custio Clayton, 12 rounds. That should be interesting. Anytime Ennis gets in the ring, you want to see it. As far as the Charlo-Castaño rematch, I got to say, look, my gut's been wrong on this lately, but I just got a feeling, I'm thinking establishment, outsider. It's the same way I approached Canelo Bivol. I just see Charlo getting a decision here, probably going to be controversial and disputed, but I see Charlo making some adjustments. He tends to do better in rematches, in winning a close decision that's possibly controversial. That's the way I see it. Okay. Now, we could go to the phones. Make sure I didn't miss any. Oh, I should also mention, yes, Canelo Alvarez apparently went vegan before this fight. I know a lot of people out there thought that was a mistake. I don't know. I'm not a nutritionist. I got to say, I like meat. It's delicious. I'm not going to stop eating it. Makes me feel strong. Okay, guys, we're going to jump to the phones. We're going to be as quick as we can. We've got maybe 30 minutes, and then I got to bounce and get to the gym. All right, so let's keep it fast. Let's jump to this first call. We've got 818. You're on TNC. What's up? Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, Mike. What's up, Mike?
What's up?
Long show today, man, but I'm loving it, bro. I don't want to disclose out there. I'm a Canelo fan. Backing up Canelo 100%, win or lose. But I do want to throw out there that Bivol did win that fight 100%, no questions asked. And just to let you on that, but there's a couple of things that I do not agree with. As far as Canelo losing the fight, and here and there things that are said on Twitter. I think some of the things that really need to be said is pointing out the fact that Canelo did do things that other fighters wouldn't do as far as challenging himself and going up in weight and taking on the best. A lot is being said about, especially some people out there not giving credit for, doing that just because he lost. If anything, Bivol should actually be getting praise for the win and giving more, pretty much, give him a bigger platform so he's able to face these bigger guys, names like the Bertavillas and the Smiths at the 175-pounder, make an even bigger fight, But, it is what it is. The scorecards with Canelo, I wasn't scoring the fight. All I can tell you is that from what I've seen, Canelo got beat up pretty badly this time around. It happens. But there's a couple of things where I would disagree with you, Mike. As far as Canelo, man, it's not that he didn't try or that he didn't have different game plans. He actually did try to go forward at first. He actually did try to be the counterpuncher after, and he did imply that whole strategy of hitting his hand, as we saw how bad his hand was. So there were things that he did try to change up his game plan with. It just he was just facing a better man that night. and with more skills, and with a I guess you could say a bigger will to win that night. Even with the scorecards being so close. So the strategy was there per se, but just he was doing it against a guy that was much better that night. So that's one thing I kind of tend to disagree with you on that. And secondly, I feel that the other wins that Canelo has in the 168-pound division also are being overlooked, or it's kind of like I think I heard your rant video after the fight. You could say maybe dismissing the fighters at 168. Weak division, we could say sure, but we could pretty much say that in every division. Let's say he does fight the Charlos. Let's say he does fight Charlo, or Benavidez, or any other one, any other 168-pounder there that hasn't faced anybody really at all. We can also dismiss those wins too if Canelo wins. Who has Charlo fought? Who has Benavidez fought? They look good. They are good, but if you see them fight whoever they fought, they are good. They have to be better because they're way better fighters than what they've fought. So it's not fair to just dismiss the fighters that he fought at 168 and beat. They were all unbeaten. They were all champions. So if we're gonna go that way, then we might as well go that other road too. If he does fight the Charlos, the Benavidez, all the fights that everybody wants to see, because none of them have fought anybody of note either. And are they better fighters? We don't know. They've never fought anybody of such caliber as a Saunders, for example, or a Callum Smith. For all we know, they could be in the same level until Canelo beats them. And when Canelo beats them, what's going to happen? It's still going to be dismissed, or are we going to call it a good win because Charlo was a good fighter, even though he's never faced anybody?
Well, I'll
big,
say this.
Big, like, you know what I'm saying?
I got you, Alex. You're at 5 minutes, so I'm going to cut you off. You're right at 5 minutes, but I hear what you're saying, and I think Canelo deserves credit. But I could give Canelo credit for unifying 168 and doing it pretty much within like a year. But I can also say that Dmitry Bivol is levels above all these other dudes that he's recently fought. And I believe both those things. By the way, I still rate Canelo as one of the top 5 pound-for-pound fighters in boxing. There's some people saying, oh, you shouldn't be on the pound-for-pound list. That's ridiculous. So I'm with you. The Canelo haters are out of control. That's what happens when you're the top guy. But I definitely think that Bivol deserves credit, and I still think that he's far above the guys at 168 that Canelo's fought. And he proved that the other night. You know what I'm saying? But I got a million calls, bro. So
Absolutely.
I got to bounce. I got to get to the next one, okay?
No, for sure, man. No, for sure, brother. Have a good one. And yeah, absolutely agree with you. Big boy is levels above the other ones. And good for him, man. Good win for him.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you listening and calling in.
All right, brother.
All right, bro. All right. Let's jump to, I think this Anthony. 203, you're on the show. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Mike? This is Anthony. Calling in to gloat a little bit.
Gloat, baby, gloat. Give it to me.
No, but nah. I don't need to do that. Jack will do that for me.
Yeah.
But I'll be really quick. I just want to talk about, I think like this loss really exposed a lot of the jealousy in boxing against Canelo. I'm not the biggest Canelo guy. I've criticized him a bunch in the past. But he's been the face of boxing. He's the reason boxing is pretty much relevant at this point. So, you see Terrence Crawford saying who's number one now. He's still not number one. It's Usyk. And then you see, Floyd post a $10,000 bet. Like, dude, you're a billionaire. What the hell? You obviously didn't have that much confidence in Canelo losing. And you just saw, like, Ryan Garcia, for example, talking shit. Like, all these dudes are obviously super jealous of Canelo. And it's just, To me, it's kind of BS because this dude's been carrying the sport. I don't even like Canelo that much. But I'm not afraid to admit that this dude has been carrying the sport for the past 3 years.
Yep. I think you make great points.
That's
it's really undeniable, dude. What Canelo's done, he fought like 4 or 5 times within a calendar year. He's put on some of the biggest events. How many people were at Canelo Saunders? It was 70,000 or some crazy shit. This was another huge crowd for his fight against Bivol. He's going to do, whenever he goes to the UK and fights, and it will happen in the next year or two, he's going to do a huge crowd over there. The guy really has carried the sport in North America. It deserves tremendous respect. So I don't, but you know, when you're the top guy, dude, you're going to get haters. That's just what happens.
Yep, 100%. I'm a Triple G guy, so I hate on Canelo all the time. But I think just all the people coming at him, just kind of ridiculous. But I'll let you go. I know you got all these other callers. But good luck on your fight Friday, Mike.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that.
All right, have a good one.
Anthony called it. He's one of the guys who called it. Several of you guys called it for Bivol, and he's one of the guys. Let's keep this thing going here. I think we got another Anthony coming up here. There's a lot of Anthonys. It's a good name. Let's see. 210.
Yeah,
on the show. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Mike? Yeah, it's Anthony. The other one, Texas one.
Texas Anthony. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with your rant, man. I agree. I just say, hey, tread carefully, man, because boxing is a sport where the good guys don't win. It doesn't happen. You know, it reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you remember, like the Gabe Montoya. Mm-hmm. He used to work with Steve Kim. The next round, he did a lot of good work with the PED stuff, and he raised some like really crazy facts. You know, when it comes to like everybody, when Pac, Floyd, and it really went nowhere. You know what I mean? It's just boxing. That's just what it is. Money. You know, it's a business before it is a sport, and that's kind of what drove me away. I got my little taste of the action, and I was like, and I always tell people like, oh man, it's fun being at the fights with a credential walking around. I was like, no, not really, man. You can't really have the fun like you know as a fan. And I go, you see a lot of ugly truth, and you see what goes on behind the curtain, and it almost makes you salty to the sport. So sometimes ignorance is bliss with this sport, and you're just better off not knowing any better, right?
That's a great point, man. Yeah, and you know, because you've been exposed to some of it. Once you're behind the scenes and you see some of what goes on, it's difficult to keep the same passion. It just is.
Yeah, it's a lot of fuckery. But real quick, I want to say, like, just because of the hypersensitive climate we're in, unfortunately, Bivol is not in the driver's seat. I don't agree with you there because I don't see any Russian being able to, you know, be a main event or anything like that with an American promoter. So I think Canelo is still going to call the shots. You know what I mean? And I agree with the last call. I was never a Canelo guy. I'm in Texas. I'm brown. Man, I got it from all kinds of people, all different ways. I'm a Triple G guy, and I couldn't stand what he was doing. But I'm so glad fight week is over. There was so much. I was defending Canelo all this week. I couldn't believe it. But, yeah, we had Tom Brown talking about Showtime was going to give Canelo his own money. He should have took it. You have all these fighters that trying to grab clout from the fight week. You know what I mean? And that's just what happens. And it's just I'm just tired of it. But yeah, I give Canelo props. You know what I mean, for taking it. I mean, no loss. I mean, everybody says this is demise, blah 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 blah. But the fact is, Pacquiao got laid out. Oscar lost both of his big fights.
Yep.
You know, when you have that kind of star power, you're still gonna be a draw. I mean, I think Canelo's gonna, and he's our last one. You know what I mean? You think when Oscar was around, there was a lot more guys that drew, but it's just Canelo. So I think it's just gonna be on his. But that's all I got. Listen, man, I appreciate the content, Mike.
Good stuff, brother. I agree 100%. Have a good one. We got a super chat here from Crisp. He says, Mike, who are you going to fight? I hope you're not ducking Errol and Charlo. I wouldn't last a round with Errol and Charlo, so definitely ducking both of them. I'm fighting a guy that I've already fought once before. We're going to rematch, and I'm expecting him to be better, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I will. It's not being broadcast, but they are going to film it. So I'll get you guys some video as soon as the promoter gets it to me. All right. And I'll let you guys know what happened, of course, as soon as I can. Okay. In fact, I don't even know what number fight I am that night. I just know that there's like 15 fights and I'm somewhere in the first 8. That's all I know, which is great. I told the promoter, I don't want to fight anywhere near the end. I don't care if I'm the first damn fight. I want to end the night early so I can enjoy some time with my wife and watch the other fights. Because the team that I trained with, we have 6 fighters on the show. So guys that I work with all the time. It's going to be really, really fun to watch guys that I spar with and train with fight on the card. So I can't wait for that. All right, back to the phones. 267, you were on the show. What's up?
Hey, Mike, first time caller, big fan of your show, dude. Love what you do.
Awesome.
I just got to get some shit off my chest with boxing Twitter because it was particularly cringe. Shocker, I know. Leading up to this fight, everyone was talking all this shit about just how Canelo was going to be too much for him, yada, yada, yada. We all read it, and it was funny how it flipped after the fact. Every single person had the same take. Well, this is why there's weight classes. This is why they get on the scale. Bullshit. This doesn't look any different at 168. Like you mentioned, he was catching every single shot on his arms. I mean, it was almost like Neo in the Matrix. He was catching it up top on his cage with his gloves, and then when Canelo would do that, hook to the head and hook to the body, the arm would come back down and catch it every single time. How much less is your punch resistance on your arms if he goes down to 168? I don't see that looking any different at all. In fact, what I'd like to see him do, go down to 168, snatch all 4 Canelo's belts, and then hang out and bully all those guys that Canelo supposedly ducked when he cherry-picked Bivol. That's what I'd like to see. That's all I got to say. That's my call, man. Thank you so much for what you do.
Damn, dude. Good call. Damn good call. I agree with all that. And look, if you guys have been listening to my show or watching my show for years, you've heard me say for years that I thought Bivol could move down and beat everybody at 168. The only guy who would remotely challenge him is David Benavidez because of his physicality. That fight would go the distance. But every other guy at 168, Bivol mops the floor with them. And I've been saying that for years. If he can comfortably make 168, then yeah, I agree with that caller. He can move down there and he can reign there. But as I mentioned earlier in the show, if they do the rematch there and Bivol were to win and he's the 168 champ, you got to remember at 175, Turbiev and Smith are unifying the other belts. He could go back up there and go for undisputed at both weights. The last guy to be the legitimate 168, 175 champ was Andre Ward. Before him, it was Joe Calzaghe. But neither of those guys simultaneously held all the belts. They won them all, but they didn't hold them all at the same time, right? So that would be a distinction that Bivol would have. That'd be huge. That'd be huge, man. Super chat from Sam. He says, Bivol was a gentleman before and after the win. Here, Sam. He absolutely was. Nobody will care where he is from in the future, especially if they made money on him. That's another damn good comment, Sam. You're right, baby. Green is the only color that really matters in the end. It really, really is. All right, let's jump to, wait, I think this is Jack. Here we go, guys. Here we go. Jack, you called it. You've been calling it. It is your time, sir. Gloat.
Okay, and I won't take up too much time because, I know you got a fight and it's pretty important. And I'm excited, bro. I'm excited, but man, I did tell every single one of you. I appreciate Mike taking my call very last at the end of the last episode, because if you look at the end of the last episode, I said Canelo will beat Bivol. That's it. Because I was like, what the fuck? And you're like, you only have 5 minutes. So I told you all. The very last thing of that episode was Bivol's going to beat Canelo. And dude, you cannot tell me I said Bivol's going to edge him or Canelo might rob him. I always said Bivol will win. Always.
And you said dominant. You said he will win big. You said that from the jump. Yep.
Yes. Jack needs to do a Bivol impression because I always do impressions on here. Okay. Canelo, he's champion and everything, but I'm confident in myself. I feel my style. No, I can't do it.
Dude, you're Russian. It started Russian and then got slightly Mexican. That was awesome.
My Russian accent. Okay, but no, Andrew, I know Jackie's taking it. No, dude, it's not that. Bivol's just so skilled, and Mike, I think your opinion has changed now. I think you agree that even at 168, Bivol would beat him. I think you agree.
I would favor Bivol. I would. My only concern is the weight cut. Could he do it in a healthy way? Will they give him enough time? If they sign that, let's say they sign that fight next month, right? That gives him from June to September to lose that weight. Then, yes, I agree. But if Canelo, is slick about it and they wait till July 31st to sign it, and then Bivol has like 6 weeks to drop that weight, that's different. So that's what I want to see.
Okay, and then real quick, here's a 10-second live reaction of my reaction to the decision. That was me, baby. I won so much money. I won dude, I was so happy. But I won like $300. But hey, last thing I wanted to point out real quick. By the way, as I am the fight king predictor, I think Mike will win in the knockout in the second round. Probably shouldn't say that because now Mike's gonna be like,
"Oh, I feel so much pressure." Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah. No. But if Triple G, I think Triple G would be the best fight for Canelo because if there's any point, my boy Triple G can get him now. If there's any chance Triple G can beat Canelo, it's right now, And dude, I actually favor him. Call me insane. Y'all call me insane for picking Bivol, dude. I'm sorry, Triple G. He has so much heart, so much determination. He's gonna put everything on the line. It's gonna be at 168. And honestly, okay, Mike, if we exclude the Derevyanchenko fight from ever happening, or forget the fact that Golovkin was 40 years old, would you still favor Canelo? Because I think people are just looking at that Derevyanchenko fight saying he's done. I'm like, he had the flu. He did. He was sick.
I tell you, man, that rubber match now, the odds a lot closer. Canelo coming off this loss, who knows how he's going to be mentally. He weighed in at like 174 and change. He's going to have to cut back down to 168. That's going to take a toll. Golovkin's going to be able to put a few extra pounds of muscle on. I'm telling you, that third fight is highly competitive.
Yes, sir. All right. It was a great weekend. This week I got I'm probably going to take Castaño. Just a 50-50 fight. So, yeah, you guys have a good night. Mike, if I'm at your fight, I'll get the best footage in the world.
All right.
And hell yeah, man. You have a good night, man.
You too, brother. Good shit, Jack. Good shit. Jack been calling it for months. He didn't wait until last week. He's been calling it for months, guys. Hey, when you're right, you're right. Jack was right on this one. Dead on balls accurate. All right, 570. I think this is Thad. What's up, Thad? How you doing, man?
Hey, I was hoping to get on before Jack. I got to give him his props, just like some of the other guys. They had the balls to call it and put money on the fact that Canelo would lose by decision and the judges. See, I thought Canelo would lose the fight in the event, but he would win on the card.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't cash my Canelo by decision bet, but I did get the over pretty heavy, and I have it parlayed with Charlo this weekend. So looking forward to that one. I know the establishment's not going to have the main guy lose 2 times in a row. It's a bad look.
So you got Charlo this weekend?
I do. Yeah, okay. I think everything's going to be stacked in his position. Yeah. Castaño won the first fight. And for Castaño to do the same thing back to back, he's going to have to change his game plan because he knew he didn't get the decision the first time. Usually that's going to throw somebody off in the next fight. So everything plays into Charlo's favor this time. Agreed. So that's my pick.
Agreed.
Back to Jack, though. Stick with the impression of Katie Taylor. You had me rolling on the ground. I was going crazy when he did that Katie Taylor impression. It really made me take notice because I never really paid attention to her speaking or doing an interview. But then I looked at her online doing all that stuff, and it just amazed me. The sweetest girl in the world. I'm not making fun of her. I'm sure she'd probably laugh at it too. And
she does.
One other thing, I noticed she's, a pretty attractive girl. So if she could play that up, she could even be a bigger star. If she, I don't know why they don't do it, but that's my advice if you're listening. But to the fight, Bivol is what you said earlier, the guy who beat Joe Smith. We all knew that. He had different levels to him. I've seen him twice in person at the Turning Stone in Atlantic City after the Pascal fight and the Joe Smith fight. And he's not a really big guy. He doesn't have to cut weight to make light heavyweight. And I think that helps him against a guy like a Canelo. It's going to hurt him against a guy like Beterbiev, though. Because that's going to be the type of style that could beat him. But if I'm Bivol, I'm dropping to 68, and I'm going to ask for 50-50 revenue because I'm dropping to 68, and I want undisputed. I think he could do it, but he'd have to knock Canelo out this time because the judges are not going to allow him to win. You said it. I saw it. He had to win 9-10. I had him winning 10 rounds. He had to win 9 to get a 115-113 decision.
Crazy.
So in a rematch, he's got to know he has to knock him out. Yeah, and no matter what we say, Mike, we can call out the establishment all we want. They're not going to change, okay? They have marching orders. They tried to give Canelo that fight. If Canelo fought the 12th round with fervor and won that round, it's a draw.
Yep.
It's a draw. And I walk away with a lot of money, because I had the draw that big too. But that's the truth. It stinks. And you're right. People in the media are afraid to call out what's real. And it sucks that when you called out Bob Bennett and roasted his ass for all the world to see after the Canelo Triple G fiasco, now your job is compromised. And everyone sees that now. So here we are in this moral, ethical dilemma. Like, what do you do? The establishment is just going to keep rolling on. And unfortunately, it's us fans that are going to keep getting screwed. I don't think we can do anything. We just have to keep calling it out. Hopefully people listening in to these shows and they finally take notice and say, look, we don't have to rob fighters. Boxing is good on its own. Canelo is going to be as big a star as he ever was. He took a loss. That doesn't hurt him. You know who it hurts? The people like the Andrades, the Charlos, the Mayweathers. Their entire career is built off of zero. Okay?
Thad, I gotta interject because you hit on something with that. Do you anticipate now, because Andrade and Charlo and all their fans were calling out Canelo, do you think any of them are going to call out Bivol now?
Absolutely not. Are you kidding me?
There
No, Bivol. No, they wouldn't fight Bivol. 2 years ago.
Right.
They cherry pick, and it's another thing that's ironic. This weekend, the fans of and the actual people, Charlo, Andrade, and all these guys, they beat Canelo. It's amazing. Like through osmosis, through Bivol, somehow they beat Canelo. Like they won. It's amazing.
Well, Floyd
like now you have fanboys online.
When Marquez knocked Pacquiao out, that was Floyd knocking Pacquiao out. Yeah.
He's 51. Now he has 51 wins and an extra knockout because obviously, Marquez knocked out Pacquiao. This is how they view life and reality. This is why we have Joe Biden in office instead of Tulsi Gabbard, because these people are told what to do and they don't really see the big picture. They just do what they're told. And it's just like that in boxing where these people are just so easily swayed. So what are we going to get from here on out? I think Canelo, it reminded me of Duran going up to fight Hagler. He lost nothing in that fight. A prime Hagler. He took him to task. It didn't hurt his stock at all. Mm-hmm. Okay? So people in boxing, losses don't matter unless the fighter doesn't matter. Okay? If you're protecting a zero, that means you're a zero. That means your whole shtick is based off that Mayweather con. Okay? Mm-hmm. Boxing fans want to see great fights, and they honor fighters who lose. Canelo, my hat's off to you.
I was just going to say, man,
yes.
we're at 6 minutes. You got some great shit.
Okay.
But we're at 6 minutes. I got to let you go.
So everybody, build off that. So, Mike, thank you for taking my call. And, Jack, get on that Katie Taylor impression.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dad. Yeah, man.
Thank you.
I wish I had more time, guys, but we have just so many calls. And honestly, I'm not going to get to all of them. I got to go here in a few minutes. But another super chat from Crisp. He said, thank you, Chris. He says, can you explain why fighters like AJ and Canelo, when taken to deep waters, get fatigued, tired? As professional fighters, this might be a problem beyond cardio. In the case of AJ, he's a heavyweight and he's super muscular. So I think that's part of it. But look, man, all fighters can get fatigued at times. These guys are superstars of the sport, so everything they do is put under a microscope. We've seen all fighters fatigued at different times. It's just, look, they're flawed fighters. AJ's very flawed, and Canelo's flawed as well. They're all flawed. So, but when you're the two most popular fighters in the world, your flaws really, really get exposed more and more because, again, you're under that microscope, right? So, in the case of Canelo, in this particular instance, I don't think 175 is his natural weight. I actually think he's pretty good at 168. I really, really do. 160 to 168 is Canelo's natural weight right now. And beyond that, he's just got too much muscle on his frame. I thought he had too much muscle on his frame for Bivol, and Bivol was moving his feet a lot. So Canelo had to chase him around, and he was throwing such hard punches. That's going to wear you down, dude, over 12 rounds. The thing is, guys, just a quick reminder, Canelo was strong enough late in that fight to pick Bivol up and carry him around on his shoulder. That's how strong he is, and his legs were still good enough to do that. Most of the time, when you're very, very, very fatigued late in the fight where you've eaten over 100 punches in your face, you can't pick up another grown-ass man like that and hold him and walk around with him on your shoulder, one shoulder, one arm, the way that Canelo did with Bivol. I can't remember what round it was, 10th round, 11th round. Maybe it was earlier than that, but it felt like it was in the second half of the fight. Generally speaking, if you're really worn down and fatigued, you can't do something like that. So it shows you that Canelo was in great shape. I think he just had a little too much meat on him. And I didn't mean it wasn't a Freudian slip because he went vegan. He had a little too much meat on his bones. And I think that weared him down a little bit. And AJ's always had too much muscle. Another super chat from Kamikatsi. Thank you so much. He says, great show as always, Mike. Do any other fighters take risks now that they've seen Canelo dethroned? Glad they gave it to Bivol. I hope they do. Listen, if he does a rematch with Bivol, odds are it's going to do bigger numbers than the first fight. We don't know what the pay-per-view numbers for DAZN is. I don't expect them to release the numbers because they're going to be less than spectacular, even though it's Bivol, okay? Or I'm sorry, even though it's Canelo. It's not going to be, a huge, huge number. Maybe they'll tell us, I don't know. But if he comes back from this loss and they do a rematch and the pay-per-view numbers actually go up, the attendance goes up, the social media traffic goes up, that will show people that a loss really don't matter. When Pacquiao lost, and he lost several times, he came back and was bigger than ever. Anthony Joshua still sells out stadiums. He's still the biggest star over in the UK. It doesn't matter if you lose, if the fan base is legitimate and it's actually an organic fan base that's there for the right reasons. They're going to show up even if you lose. Now, if it's the kind of fan base that you're buying off of social media, or if it's some sort of political agenda kind of thing happening there, they will disappear. They'll move on to the next thing. But if they're there because they love you as a fighter, then they're going to keep showing up. And in the case of Canelo, I think they will. So we're going to take one more call, guys, and then we got to bounce. Okay, so I apologize. There's a ton of you that I can't get to. I just can't. I got to get to the gym. I really shouldn't even be doing this show. I should be at the gym right now. So if I lose, I'm going to blame you guys. Just joking. Anyway, let's go to Nacho. Nacho, you are the last man on the phone today. Let us have it.
All right, Mike. I'm not going to take too long because you got to go to the gym. So I'm just going to make a few quick points. I totally agree with what you said about the judging. It was awful. They were trying to find a way to give as many benefit of the doubt as they could to Canelo. I was stunned at that. I was stunned and then not stunned at that score, because the way I scored it was I could totally see the fight having been 9-3. You could possibly even make the case 8-4, but I think that's as high as you could go. So the fact that they even got it to 7-5 was really astounding. And then having looked at the judges' scorecards where they literally went first 4 to Canelo, and then the second 4 to Bivol, I was like, what the hell? Like, what kind of ridiculous bullshit is this? I've never seen judges all agree on the same kind of scorecards through the first 8 rounds. It was unbelievable. They were trying to find a way to give it to Canelo until they realized they couldn't. Bivol just completely, outclassed him. And then as far as like, I have a suggestion, Mike, when it comes to the judges. I don't think the promoter should be allowed to pay and bring in the judges. I honestly think the commissions and the sanctioning bodies should be the ones to pick the judges, because it always felt to me that with promoters being involved, that their influence could sway the judges to pick their guy or favor their guy more than they should. And I've always felt like that might be a better way of picking judges than allowing the promoter to be involved. And then just real quick, as far as the rematch, I agree with you, Mike. If they do it at 68, I think the weight cut hurts Bivol, unless, like you said, they give him 3 months to get ready for the fight. And something tells me I don't think that that's going to happen. I think Canelo might legitimately squeeze it down to where it might be 8 weeks, maybe a little more. But I think he would angle it just to where if it was going to be at 68, it would slightly favor him in that he thinks maybe Bivol would struggle to get down to 68. But it would be an interesting dynamic if they did fight the rematch at 68. I'd be very curious to see how that turns out. And last thing, as far as Charlo-Castaño, I agree with what Jack said. I think it's a 50-50 fight. And I think, the fight could go either way. But I think Castaño is going to come out a lot stronger in the beginning, and he's going to take it to Charlo. I think he waited too long, and it wasn't until the second half of the fight that he really tried to press the action, and then he saw that he could get to him. So I think he's going to come out stronger, and I think he might be able to pull this one off. All right, Mike, I know you got to go to the gym. That's my call.
Thanks a lot, Nacho. Appreciate it, man. And great point about Castaño. If Castaño starts earlier, he could win that fight. I hadn't thought about it like that. I tend to see it the way Thad does, where the establishment is going to is just going to have it in for Castaño or for Charlo. That's the way I see it. I hope I'm wrong. I was proven wrong with that last Saturday. All right, guys, have a great night and have a great week. We'll talk very, very soon. Big news to come. All right? I'll see you at the fights. Peace.